So we have established that today is Father's Day, and that's always a special day, just as Mother's Day is an important day to honor moms and express our love and pay tribute. So it is appropriate, I feel, to have a day that we pay tribute to all fathers, and so that's what we're up to. You know, every relationship is unique, and that's basically because every individual, every person is different, and every relationship is its own creation, and each person brings their own unique personality and what have you to a relationship. And so this is true of any relationship then between a father and son, a father and a daughter. They're all unique. They have some similarities, of course, but they can vary. You know, and our perceptions of our fathers change over time. It's interesting to note how a son or a daughter views their parents over the years, particularly, you know, how their views are when they're a child, and their view of their parents, and then as they grow older, of course, that alters and changes as they themselves become an adult. As many a person has told me, sometimes it's kind of like they said, you know, when I was young and a teenager, or there was a certain stage I went through, I didn't think my parents or my dad knew anything. You know, I couldn't relate to him. And then a few years later, it was like I got to where I realized as an adult, Dad, you know, I had come to be an adult, and so I came to know my dad, knew a whole lot more than I really had ever given him credit for. You know, it's kind of like we learn some of the ropes and some of the aspects of life, and that can change. So naturally, it's likely that a child is going to see a parent or their dad differently when they're a child from when they grow older, and it varies as you go along. And it's often fun to read these different captions and things that they have of what children have to say about their parents or about their mom or their dad. And there oftentimes are assignments like that that are given to kids, and you have books that carry these types of things. And I have one of those books, and it's a little gift book that's called To Dad, You Poor Old Wreck. It's written by children for fathers everywhere, and it has, you know, really cute and funny things that it says, and it has children sayings from, you know, age 3 or 4 on up to, you know, into their teens and what have you. They're even writings, things that they have written about their dad as soon as they could learn to write. Anyway, there's one little boy, he's a 12-year-old, his name was Philip, and in this book I just share with you as an example. Here's what Philip wrote. He said, he was describing his dad, "Dads get your French homework wrong. Dads sleep in his armchair all Sunday. Dad," it's not dads, I'm sorry, it's singular dad. "Dad is someone who tries to explain how the kitchen shelf fell down. Dad fixes the car and then has to send it to the mechanic to be repaired. Dad had to walk 5 miles to school when he was a boy. Some of them had to go through 2 feet of snow, too, you know. Dad was almost picked for the Olympics." That was a storyline. "Yeah, son, I was almost picked for the Olympics." Anyway, it's always fun to read those, and many of them are assignments that, you know, kids had when they were in school at different ages. Maybe when it was coming around to be Father's Day, and they were given the assignment to you know, explain, tell us about your dad or something like that. Well, I happen to have one. You know, those are something you want to keep, and I've kept those from all my children, actually, and I share with you this morning one from my son, Troy. And here's the cover. If you can see the picture, it has a picture of me here, and it says, "My Dad." This is when Troy was 11. He's now 34, about to become 35. And so let's see what Troy had to say when he was 11 about me. You want to hear it? Oh, no, you don't want to hear it. Okay. Okay, this was interesting to me to go back, as I've kept these that are fun to read. "My father is a nice man." Starts off good. This is "My Dad" by Troy Caesar. "My father is a nice man. He is about 6 feet tall and about 185 pounds. My dad has good looks when my sister and mom help him. I don't remember that, but My dad has dark hair with a mustache, too. I had a mustache back then for a while. His eyes are blue, and his teeth are good looking. Well, it looks like he brushes his teeth about 3 times a day. He has clear braces that look okay on him. You know those clear braces? I had them at that time. He wears his hair back and is naturally wavy. He wears contacts unless he's at work, then he wears glasses. My father is not too old-fashioned. My dad has a nice wardrobe, except some outfits. He usually wears an Oxford cloth shirt with a sweater over it. Always, when he's at work, he wears a suit. I think he was thinking of Sundays. Every few months, he wears Guess jeans. And a nice shirt with in-style shoes. So I met his fashion plate approval once every several months, I think. Anyway, my dad is an easygoing guy. He never gets really mad unless he does something terrible. There are some things my dad emphasizes, and they are going to church, doing good in school, and to obey. My dad likes to have fun. So with the little time we have, we do have fun things to do. All these things are what makes my father special, so that's why I love him. This is my son, Troy. He's here today and didn't know that was coming at all, so... Anyway, I'm very proud of my son. I'm very proud of my daughters, Dawn and Star, and who they are, who they've grown up to be. I love them beyond words. Just great kids that grew to wonderful adults. And I like being a dad, and I like being called Dad. When I hear it, it vibrates in me, to my heart. And it's a title I think that dads should take seriously. It's significant, the responsibilities that go with it, and for me, the desire to want to measure up, be a good dad. I mean, I consider that. I think about that, and so I try to be. I know I'm not the best. I know I've made mistakes, but I really do think about wanting to be a good father and what that might look like. You know, some of you are familiar with the name Tim Russert. Tim Russert was a legendary TV journalist with NBC News. And 4 years ago, on Father's Day weekend, he died suddenly. He was only in his 50s. And his only child is named Luke Russert. And Luke wrote an article and paid tribute to his father. And he wrote about how seriously his father took his role to be as a father. At one time, he was on Oprah Winfrey and was talking somehow about being a father and his son, and he said to Oprah, when my life is over, there's nothing more I'll be judged on than what kind of father I was. That's how seriously he took being a father. And his son Luke went on to tell many wonderful things about Tim Russert, his father, and how he was like a friend to him, how he was like a compass, helping guide him in his life, guided him in many ways. He talked about lessons in life that his father gave him and that still stay with him, that have carried forward. And he talked about 3 in particular, and so I want to share with you these 3. One of the lessons in life that he got from his father was to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. And certainly an important message that we as fathers would want to convey to all our children. Believe in yourself. And Luke said that if there was one phrase that his father did not like to hear was, "I can't." And he talked about it, the fact that his grandfather, Tim's father, was a garbage man from South Buffalo, New York. And he never got to finish high school. And he had to hold down 2 jobs to provide for his family. He worked very hard, of course. He never complained. But it was through education and years of hard work that Luke's dad had become among the most recognized and successful political journalists of his generation. And Luke was in his freshman year of high school, and he was doing terrible in geometry. And so his dad, knew about it. They shared, and so he got him a tutor. But he was still struggling, even with a tutor. And so then his teacher suggested that Luke come in mornings at 7 a.m. Each morning for some extra help from him, the geometry teacher. And Luke told his dad, "That's crazy. I can't do that." And his dad said, "You're going to do it. I'll bring you." And so he said every morning at 6:45, they'd leave the house. And despite having to work 12 hours a day, his dad, and often having to appear on the Today Show somewhere between 7 and 8 a.m., so it was a tight schedule there, his dad never failed to get him there for that extra study with the teacher. And after months of study, eventually he had the final exam. And on the day of the final exam, Luke was nervous. And that day, his dad took him to school. And his dad got out of the car with him, and he walked with him, about 20 yards up toward the school. And then he hugged Luke, and he said, and he still remembers these words. He said, "Luke, I believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. You can do it. And whatever happens, it'll be okay. I love you. And I know you can do this." And so he went and took the exam. He did pass the exam. So when he got his grade, his dad was the first one that he called. And he called and told his dad he had passed. And his dad, Tim, screamed, "Yes!" He said, "You worked your butt off. And you earned it. And you believed in yourself." And so now Luke is a Capitol Hill correspondent for NBC News. And whenever he has some big task or difficult challenge or problem to work on, he just knows that with hard work and believing in himself, that he can succeed. He's taken that with him. Another lesson that he said that he learned from his father was that it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be scared. Luke had developed a fear of flying. There was a time he had an experience and the airplane was surging all over and bouncing. It must have been a storm, and it actually dropped several hundred feet very quickly. And so that whole experience had frightened him about flying. So sometime later, when Luke was flying from Washington, D.C. to Boston, his dad drove him to the airport. And on the way to the airport, Luke was kind of acting really weird, so he sensed that there was something wrong. In fact, Luke was actually physically perspiring, and he was, doodling, tapping nervously on the side of the door of the car and all of that. And so when they pulled up to the airport, to the terminal, his dad said, "I'm coming in. I'm coming in with you." And so he was kind of freaked out. I'm old enough, I don't need an escort as a father, he didn't say that. But anyway, his dad came in with him, and he bought a ticket. And even though he had a show the next day and couldn't fly to Boston, he bought a ticket so that he could get through security and spend some extra time with taking him to the gate. And they had enough time, went and had a beer. And he said, "Let's talk. Let's go have a beer here, and we'll talk about this." And Luke said that his dad, could have simply said, "Look, kids, suck it up. It's only an hour-and-a-half flight." But instead of that, he went out of his way to support him and to honor his feelings and to say it's okay to be scared. And so they sat down and they talked, and he shared that how airlines only fly in safe conditions. They won't fly if it's really dangerous. Pilots, are well trained. He gave all kinds of statistics about it being the safest kind of travel there is. And he told him to think about turbulence in the air as no more than rough waves hitting a boat that might be in choppy sea, and that that the boat's not going to sink. And that's the way you need to think about flying. His dad then escorted him to the boarding gate and just said, gave him a hug and said, "I love you, buddy, and call me when you land." And Luke said that to this day, he still, really appreciates and accepts that we all have fears. All people have fears, and that they can be real fears, and that if you can acknowledge them and if you can talk them through with somebody and understand them better, you can clearly overcome them. And so that's how he's always dealt with any fears that might come up. The third thing that he said that he shared and he learned from his father was, remember the little things. Remember the little things. His dad was a big believer in random acts of kindness, and he was even known among his fellow employees to do things of just out of the blue that were just sweet and nice and thoughtful. And Luke remembers that when he was in college, that he often would have a FedEx box package come to be sent to him and delivered. And inside would be all kinds of magazines that his dad knew were his favorite, and often filled with various snacks and things. And Luke said that, it wasn't so much what was contained in the box, but it was that his dad, the busiest man that he knew on the earth, found time to show him that he was thinking about him. And as a result, Luke has continued to, in his dad's ways, to carry on those kind of caring, sensitive, thoughtful ways. So it was a beautiful tribute that Luke shared about his father, and it gives us an indication really of how we as individuals, father, mother, friend, whatever, the impact that we can make and how it is that we show up. And today is Father's Day, and so most certainly we're all hopefully can feel the love and gratitude that we have for our earthly fathers and the role that they have played in our lives and the contributions that they have made. And I myself can think of the things that my father taught me, whether he knew he was teaching me them or not. He indeed did. He indeed did, because of the way that he showed up in various ways at various times that impacted me for good and in good ways. And of course, some fathers have been able to be better than others, and we're not measuring all, but the truth is some fathers go through and struggle through difficult challenges at times in their life when their children are growing up and things, so you just never know. But each father has done the best that he could at the current level and at the current time and the stage of development that individual as a soul was going through, and the things that they were dealing with. And of course, there's always the opportunity to do better at a later time and to express things that maybe got left undone at earlier times. So let us both love and forgive if that is called for in a situation between a father and a child, because really it's all about eventually getting to love. Let there not be any sense of estrangement from a parent. That is so important as a soul, to clean those things up and return. I've talked to people who have had estrangements from a father from a daughter or son or from a father, and how painful that is, and how that's on their mind so much to find a way back. And maybe one doesn't let the other in. And so if you're one that's not letting somebody in, don't be that, because as a soul, it's a tremendous leap to be able to get that back in order. Really, we need to get to love, and that's the biggest tribute that we can give to our Heavenly Father. Fathers may differ, but on earth, our earthly fathers, but our Heavenly Father is one and the same. He's the Father of all fathers and consistent, the Father of creation, Father of all humanity, and the Father that Jesus went to great lengths, I feel, and thought through the importance of calling that God Father. In other words, all of us are going to have concepts of God, and that concept may grow and change over time. Even through the Bible, the concept of God changed, from a punishing God and kind of an angry God and a cruel God at times in the Old Testament to what Jesus delivered. And that whole concept and that whole image of God shifted to one of absolute love. And that's why he found it so important to call God Father. And a father in terms of thinking of the best conceivable father you could ever imagine. A father who's always there, always supporting, always upholding, always upgirding, always strengthening, always loving. There isn't anything that you can do, no matter how much you mess up, that would deny the love of God being there for you. And so there was a great deal of meaning that Jesus invested in the word Father. It had to do with relationship. It had to do with family. It had to do with closeness. It had to do with familiarity. It had to do with intimacy. and all the qualities of love and forgiveness and strength and oneness. He used He used the word Father in so many ways, and let me just give you a few as a reminder. He said things like, "It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." He said, "All things have been delivered to me by my Father." He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Just think of all the things that he was having a conversation relating to the Father, whether it be forgiveness or judgment or oneness or all these statements. Most of these are found in the Gospels of Luke and John. He said, "Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit." Total surrender. He said, "The Father judges no one." Some would have you believe that God stands in judgment of us. No, God doesn't judge. We judge ourselves. We are the biggest judge. And we judge each other, which we need to get beyond. He said, "I have come in my Father's name," which means I have come in my Father's nature, that I reflect the very nature and character of God. We're inseparable. He said, "Everyone who has heard and learned from the Father comes to me." He said, "I and the Father are one." There's no separation. He said, "He who has seen me has seen the Father." He said, "I am in the Father, and the Father in me." And lastly, he said, the words that I say to you, I do not speak of mine own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does his works." It was Oliver Wendell Holmes who said, "My religion is summed up in the first two words of the Lord's Prayer, Our Father." Because he saw God as Father, he really understood why Jesus emphasized that. And it's not just my Father, it's our Father, which makes us all one family. And we all share on Father's Day the same Father, you see, and there's a sense of closeness. And it's so important to get that the nature of God is good, and we're as fathers trying to do the best we can. We may not be there, but Jesus even tried to give us a hint of how loving and how forgiving and how understanding the divine God is as Father. He said, and this is in Matthew, he said, if you who are so full of evil, and he just meant basically mistakes, errors, falling short, okay? If you who are so full of not necessarily being the perfect father yet, nevertheless do your best for your children, how much more will God, who is altogether good, do for you? Here again, he's incorporating the illustration, the metaphor that God truly is a father to you. Okay? And that, yes, we have our shortcomings. We're not there yet, but hopefully you realize that, just think, if God, whose nature is infinite good, how much God will be that for you. And it's so important for us to get to the place where we're in relationship in that way, that we think of God as a Father who is always there. Okay? And we don't have to necessarily think of him there physically. It's his Spirit is there, and it may be just thoughts coming through, just loving us, lifting us up in some way, comforting us, guiding us in a moment, a thought that comes out of the heart of God to lift us and move us forward. It can be very powerful. And then he gave us that parable of the prodigal son that said basically, here's what God is like, that if you go astray and you mess up and you blow your inheritance and waste it, and go to a far country, and then you decide to return and to admit your errors. And the prodigal son in the story, has a plan. He's going to admit his errors. He's going to come back. He's going to tell his father that he'll work along with the servants. There's this hint that maybe he was afraid that love would be withheld. He wasn't sure how he would be received, but there was none of that happened. When he got there, his father sees him from far off, starts running, comes with compassion, the story tells us, which is all about love. He ran, embraced him, and kissed him, and gifted him with a robe and a ring and shoes and a celebration of fatted calf and dancing and merriment. And wow, what an image that you get, Jesus is saying, this is the way God is. This is the way God is. And so don't deny him in any way. And so it's, speaking of Tim Russert and being a father to his son, this parable is really saying, believe in yourself, but believe in your God also. And realize that he believes in you. Realize that the Father will never stop loving the son or daughter. Okay? And that the father always believed that he will make it back home, you know. And he always believes that you will pass the exams. We have a lot of exams